What's up, everyone? Let me make sure my microphone is working. Thanks for being here. So, yeah, happy, what is today? Monday. I've been working too much. Happy Monday. Thanks for being here, everyone. Yeah, so I have a debate tonight. It's one of those 9-person debates, so good luck. Not talking trash on anyone involved with it, just it's hard to, I think it's hard to have an effective panel with that many people sometimes. Um, but yeah, so I just want to make sure my equipment was all working and stuff like that, and do a little stream before I do that. So I'll repeat this several times. There's only 3 people watching right now, but if you're watching later, I'll repeat this as this live stream goes on. The debate will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to try to stream it on my D Live and Twitch. However, for some reason, so the way they do it is they use the videos from Whereby, the audio's on Discord. I don't know why, but they have trouble hearing me while I'm streaming, so there's a good chance that I'll just ask people to go over to Primecayes stream, and that's as it's spelled, capital P, so it's Prime, and then one word, capital Cayes, Primecayes, and that's on Twitch TV. So if you search Primecayes on Twitch TV, you'll be able to see me there if it's not streaming on mine. I'll try to stream it, it won't be on YouTube, so don't even check there. You can find my D Live and Twitch channels at Normal America on D Live and Normal America with Rob Noor on Twitch.tv. So you can check the debate there. Now, I know most of you will probably be watching the RNC, which, I kind of wanted to do as well, but I made an obligation to Prime that I would do this. I forgot about the RNC, so here we go. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think I always do well in these. My goal going in is to be, stand by my principles, see if I could learn anything, if someone has some opinions that could change my mind, try to convince other people that I'm a reasonable person and that my positions are correct, and defend myself and my principles as strongly as possible without being a total jerk. So hopefully that comes across to everyone, even if they disagree with me, and I think I always do well on these panels. So if you don't watch it live, I will probably record it, and you can watch it tomorrow. I'll probably put it on YouTube tonight, late night, so be up there by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I would assume. So I'm kind of a little... So I agree to these things before I know the topics, and understand that I work so much, I don't get a lot of preparation, So the topics I just found out today, and I'm not happy with these topics because it's basically... I don't know. It's never topics that I really want to talk about. So these topics, I'll just have to gear it towards what I want to talk about. But a lot of them are like, how much do you beat your wife type questions. So let me just read what the topics are tonight. You guys can judge for yourself. Topic 1. Since there is no legal obligation for the Democrat or Republican Party to adhere to the items included in their political platforms, should that factor into a voter's decision when casting a ballot? I mean... Basically, I guess what this question is politicians could lie. There's no legal obligation to not lie about what's in their platform. So should you even consider their platform when voting for them? I mean, I guess. I don't understand this question. It's just like, you should vote for how you want. Do you want to vote particularly because what your candidate's saying? Or do you want to vote because the party that candidate's in and what that party stands for? I guess either of those are legitimate reasons. For example, sometimes it's different. So I live in rural Pennsylvania. A lot of Democrats that run in local elections, pro-gun, pro-life, it's just they believe in a bigger taxation. That's it. And that's not, even though I'm for smaller taxes, that's not totally unreasonable. So, I guess in that situation, I wouldn't consider the platform necessarily of the Democratic Party when voting for a specific candidate that's intentionally going against that platform. But if the question's meant to be more of, should you listen to what politicians say because they lie? I don't know. I guess that's a problem. But that question, I'm like, okay, whatever. But that's probably the best topic. Well, no, the third topic's fine. Topic 2. If a politician believes in creationism rather than evolution, should that disqualify them from public office? This is going to be an angry question, I have a feeling, because I would leave the implication to this will be, well, then you're anti-science. If you believe in God, that somehow makes you anti-science. Therefore, you possibly shouldn't be allowed to hold public office. We'll see how far they're willing to go with that. I'm guessing there will be people on the panel that, for example, believe that there are men that could give birth and things like that, that there are no major biological differences between men and women. Does that mean they shouldn't be allowed to hold office? And I'm assuming when I bring it up, it'll get really heated and people will scream and stuff. So that could be fun. But I mean, that's just, I mean, whatever. That's clearly a question geared towards getting a reaction. And seeing as how I'm only one of two conservatives, and I don't even think the other conservatives religious at all. I'm not super religious, but I would assume that question's geared towards having 7 people yell at me. That's fine. The third topic is, should the U.S. encourage high-skill immigration, doctors and engineers, or should it focus on improving the U.S. workforce? That's a decent question. And I think that there's some nuance there, so we'll get into that. And then the last topic, if we get to it, is this one's great. The Trump administration's often been called fascist, proto-fascist. Is that a fair description? Since the popular definition of fascism is vague and poorly defined, is this label useful or does it muddy public discourse? Yeah. Is Trump a fascist? So these panels are rough because, it's usually me and a bunch of leftists, so we'll see. Whatever. So other than that's what'll be going on with the debate. Now, again, I'll try to stream that on Twitch and DLive, so you can follow it there. If not, you can go to Primecayes on Twitch TV and follow the debate, or you can just check it not live tomorrow if you're watching the RNC or doing something else. But it's supposed to start at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the debate. Tune in for it to see what you get. But yeah, anything specific anyone wanted to talk about? The RNC tonight, to me, it's not even what will be said. It's the media reaction to it that's always the most telling. So watching the media fawn over mediocre speeches by Michelle Obama, and when I say mediocre, it wasn't a bad speech. It's just mediocre by her standards. I thought her 2016 speech, even though I didn't like it as far as what she's saying, but as a speech, as an effective speech, I thought her 2016 speech was very effective. This one wasn't as good. It's still a good speech, but it wasn't as powerful. And certainly when it comes to the factual nature of it, it's riddled with lies, mischaracterizations, ignoring reality, etc. Biden's speech was okay, but watching them fawn over those speeches lets you know exactly, if you didn't, what they're going to do with the RNC. They'll start using words like dark and divisive. You could literally say that the guy running one of the parties is a Nazi and all of his supporters are racist. And that's not dark. That's a message of hope and light. But if Trump stands up and says, there are riots everywhere, they'll be like, this is dark. That's a dark speech. Never underestimate the ability of the media to be as corrupt as possible. Brian Stelter was getting some crap because he said, CNN's going to interrupt the RNC for fact-checking as the night goes on. They didn't do that with the DNC, though, did they? They all fawned over Michelle Obama's speech, and she talked about Trump putting kids in cages, ignoring the fact that Biden and Obama was the first president to put kids in cages. They ignored that, didn't they? Also, have you heard enough? I haven't heard people really talking enough about how in the world can the Democrats allow Bill Clinton to speak? Now, look, I don't mind because I believe in innocent until proven guilty, but how can this party that did what they did to Kavanaugh then have Bill Clinton go on and speak for the Democrats? It's like they're not even trying anymore. I feel like the Democrats, if they could have at least been like, well, we'll leave Bill Clinton do some private dinners, raise some money doing private dinners, talking. But we're not going to have him on primetime TV after the whole Kavanaugh Me Too crap. But there he was. They don't care at all. Look, one of the reasons that, yes, I believe that the Democratic Party, first off, you hear me complain about the Republicans enough as well, but I do believe the Democratic Party is horrible, that it's ran, not everyone that is a Democrat, but I believe that party's ran by people that want to end this nation state. They want globalism, and they realize that by attacking the working class, that's the easiest way to do it. So they divide us based on race, they attack the working class, they screw over the middle class economically, they take away your right to speech, your right to protect yourself, etc. And that's all designed to make us dependent on the government so that they can usher in this globalism. That's what I believe the people... What's up, Phil? That's what I believe the people running the Democratic Party are doing, right? It doesn't mean everyone, your friend down the street that's a Democrat, they believe that. But the people running the party That's what they're about. Republicans, yeah, there's a lot of them I dislike. The never Trump establishment Republicans, the coward Republicans that won't even defend this country. You know, people like my elected leaders in my state, some of them that it's like getting them to pull teeth to be like, oh yeah, by the way, my constituents aren't a bunch of racists. They can't do that. It's too hard for them. So yeah, I have problems with them as well. But aside from that, I think the reason that I hate the establishment Democratic Party so much is their faux moral superiority mixed with hypocrisy. Like, it's just galling to me. And by the way, I feel the same way when I was growing up and you would see people that were like super religious, but then like they would, you know, someone would lecture you at, you know, me at Sunday school every week about how I was a bad kid for this, that, and the other. And then you find out they're cheating on their wife and beats their wife or something. Or they're yelling at kids, you better not be in drugs, and then you find out they're a meth head. You know, things like that. There's this sort of schadenfreude with that you're just like, ooh. It just angers you that they're that faux moral superior when they're some of the worst people. That's the establishment Democrats now. I didn't change. I disliked that when I saw it when I was young coming from the right. And now I dislike it when I see it coming from the left. And it's almost entirely coming from the left. My friends on the left are like, how did you change her up? What did I change about? Dylan Burns, by the way, one of my favorite leftists, is going to be on this panel tonight. Yeah, I saw Wisconsin is burning. Dylan's going to be on this panel tonight, and he's big into foreign policy. Unfortunately, we don't have a foreign policy topic, but think about this. If you're a Democrat, let's go back to where I first started to become political. So I was a senior when 9/11 happened, and even that, you know, I had this gut reaction of we need to do something, like this is horrible, and I knew it was a big deal, but I couldn't have told you the first thing about, you know, political theory or, you know, my political philosophy. I didn't really pay attention. And then within the next 2-3 years, I started to be opposed to like the war in Iraq and things like that, and I made a lot of left-wing friends, and I didn't really have a political leader that I looked to, but then that became Ron Paul. That's who was the first political candidate that I really said, yeah, that's the guy who I most align with. Oh, no problem, Phil. Debate at 8 o'clock if you're not doing anything. So, yeah, I was a Ron Paul fan. Anyways, Ron Paul was against these foreign regime change wars as well. Made all these friends on the left. You guys have heard me say this a million times. All these friends on the left, they were against the war. And then what happened? Well, then Obama was for the wars, and all of a sudden they shut up. All of a sudden, my friends that were so against the war, well, now they either were for the war now or they didn't care. It wasn't a big deal that Obama was doing it. Now, when Trump tries to pull out, they go nuts. How dare you? You can't pull out. Okay. So you're for the never-ending wars. And then, what's even crazier is, watch the DNC. Watch their convention. Pretty much every neocon from the Bush era is supporting Joe Biden. It's not surprising. Joe Biden supported the Iraq war. Now, I know people will say, well, so did Trump. Maybe he did. He wasn't in office. That's fine. He said he was for it, then was against it, then was for it. Okay. That's fine. I'll concede that he was for it, just for the sake of argument. And it used to be that the left told me that the most immoral thing that George Bush or the establishment was doing was these wars. That was the big thing, because that was actually causing people to die. Many, many people. That's what they said was the highest stake, you know. Now, they don't care. They're totally the party of the neocons now. They're totally the pro-war party. Only wars, though, that don't make sense. Like, they don't want to risk economic confrontation with China. They don't want to do that. But they want all these neocons in... Joe Biden looks like a strong enough guy. I'm sure he's going to push back against the Bill Kristols and the Cheneys and the Colin Powells and the Rumsfelds and all these other people that are either publicly or supporting him behind the scenes. Yeah, I'm sure. Or maybe it's just all those pro-Iraq Bush people. Maybe now they all realize their mistake and they're all big peaceniks. You think that's what's happening? What do you think's more likely? That the reason the neocons are supporting Joe Biden is because they realize he shares their policies, or that they've changed overnight? One of the big reasons that the establishment hated Trump from the get-go was because he suggested maybe we shouldn't be involved in some of these conflicts like Syria. Maybe we shouldn't be involved in pushing for an armed conflict with Russia, who's a nuclear-armed superpower. Our military-industrial complex couldn't have that. The intel agencies couldn't have that. They got to make their money. They got to have something to frighten the people with so they can take your rights. Now, has Trump been perfect? No, he bombed Syria. He's done other things. He supported Saudi Arabia in their war on Yemen. Again, I'm not a peacenik. I'm not saying that we can never have armed conflict. When we're talking about fighting groups like ISIS and things like that, fine. But why are we arming ISIS, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda in places like Libya and Syria? Why were we doing that under Obama? On one hand, we had to strip ourselves of our Fourth Amendment rights. You can't walk through an airport without having someone like Joe Biden grab you and feel you up. And all that was done in the name of, well, you have to give up your Bill of Rights protection because Islamic terrorism is such a big deal. But we'll arm the Islamic terrorists when we feel like it. Bland but Spicy says Trump's unpredictability and wild image does have some benefits of national security. I agree with that. I definitely do. Everybody knew that all of our adversaries across the world and our allies knew that they could push us around under Obama. But that's because Obama's a globalist. That's why. They don't like the nation state. They don't like the United States. I'm not saying they want everyone to die. They just legitimately think that they're smarter and more moral than everyone in the United States, that you should have to rely on them for everything, and the idea of having a country like the United States is terrible. Instead, we should have a global community. And then with that global community, they'll be in charge of everything, and they're our parents and tell us what to do. Some of them are horrible and evil, and that's why they think like that. Others are arrogant and ignorant, and that's why they think like that. But that's what's going on. So, of course, no one's going to fear Democrat foreign policy because all they're going to do is whatever the globalists want. For 50 years, we've elected people that sold out the working class in this country. They've sent our jobs overseas. They've sent our wealth overseas. Everything that we've done in our country, it's always, what about this? How's it affect these refugees? How's it affect the UK? How's it affect France? That's what's going on. But what's the globalist want? Who's running it? Well, military-industrial complex, intel agencies, wealthy oligarchs. They all like the war. They all like these conflicts. Somehow, though, the party of peace, the Democrats, is where they reside now. That's the danger. It's the same. I've talked about this with Antifa specifically, but it's the same is true of Black Lives Matter. The same is true of the Democrats. All of these institutions are ran by groups that support them, yet they claim, we don't have any power. We're the victim. It's institutional bigotry and racism. Right. New World Order. That's one way of putting it, sure. Bland says, I give Trump way too much credit. He's owned by the same people as the Democrats. Maybe. I'm not claiming that Trump's an outsider. I'm claiming that they thought he might be an outsider, and that's why they attacked him. I don't think Trump's owned by those people. I think Trump surrounded himself with those people unknowingly. I think Trump's not as smart as he thinks he is, so he puts people like John Bolton around him, or Michael Cohen around him, or all these other people, Dr. Fauci around him, that have in their interest the destruction of the nation state of the United States of America and the destruction of the working class. But that's no excuse. Now, having said that, Trump's at least spoke up about trying to defend this country. And regardless if Trump actually does it or not, the movement around Trump is waking people up to understanding the importance of loving your country and working for the people of your country first. But my personal belief is that Donald Trump is not involved with the intel agencies and all these other oligarchs that are really trying to run the show from behind the scenes. I don't think they like him. I think he would be aligned with them if he thinks it benefits him. He probably would. But they don't like him because they want their ideal candidate is Joe Biden. That's who they want. Or Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's basically Kamala Harris. So the two types of people they want is someone who's so weak, literally physically weak, like Joe Biden, where he's getting to that age where he's having cognitive problems. So they could just basically run the show and he's just a puppet. Or someone like Hillary or Kamala that is so interested in power that they'll just do anything that they're told. Donald Trump seems a little more arrogant. He seems a little more like he might go off the reservation. Yeah, sure, we'll bomb Syria now, but maybe I'll change my mind next week. They don't want that. They want predictability. They've controlled the establishment on both sides for so many years. They don't want someone coming in. That's why they didn't like Bernie Sanders. And I think Bernie Sanders is a hypocrite, and he spent the past 4 years sucking up to these people, trying to say, please, I promise, I will do whatever you say. Please give me another lake house. Didn't work for him. Well, Phil says it's upsetting finding out how many Republicans are RINOs. Yeah. I mean, I've known it for a long time. I said, look, you might, if you're on the left, you might despise me, you know. That's fine. But I assure you, anyone who's watched my channel long enough knows I spend half my time railing on the establishment Republican Party. The entire month of March was just me screaming about the Republicans. What are they doing? They're letting our country be burned to the ground by left-wing terrorists, racist left-wing terrorists. They're leaving our rights be stripped through these lockdowns that's crushing middle America. Where's, you know, I say this all the time. We as Republicans, we make fun of, like, well, not make fun of, but we tell, like, inner city black community all the time, like, why do you keep voting for these Democrats? 60, 70 years you voted for these Democrats, nothing ever gets better. They promise you the moon, and then they ignore you for 4 years until the next election. Is it any different for us? We keep voting for these same Republicans, and then they get to Washington and they could care less about us, but then 3 years from now they'll be like, yeah, vote for me again. We'll get it done this time. What is a RINO? Someone who opposes Trump? No. There have been people, Rand Paul, for example, is not a RINO. He's opposed Trump on many things. He also supports Trump on things. But he's not a RINO. A RINO is someone who basically believes in the left-wing cause but pretends to be a Republican. So, for example, Republicans stand for small economic government. If you're a Republican, you should have questioned trillion-dollar spending bills. They didn't. That's because they're RINOs. If you're a Republican, you would be furious to find out that the intel agency was weaponized against your candidate and your president. But most of them weren't. That's RINOs. So, but anyways, back to the original point. It's the moral superiority that you see from the Democrats combined with their total and utter hypocrisy. And I could be wrong, but I bet you'll see it in the debate tonight if you watch the debate on my channel. The people that claim to be, sometimes they claim to be the most morally superior, or sometimes the most hateful, vitriolic people. You know, you watch these debates and a bunch of people that they'll sit there and tell you how good of people they are and how moral they are. They can't help but scream at you, call you names, things like that. So, yeah, Twitch, you know. Yeah, RINO means Republican in name only. I assume Bland but Spicy knew that. He was just saying, do we only call people RINOs because they oppose Trump? Yeah, the Twitch is very left-leaning, you know, and I don't think that the left-leaning nature of Twitch represents accurately the makeup of the United States, but it's definitely the direction it's going, because the Republicans and conservatives have lost the culture war. It doesn't matter if we win election after election. If we lose the culture war, this is inevitably what will happen. That's what we're seeing now. They could burn down cities and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's noble, it's a good thing. You know? They could take away your rights, lock you down. Oh yeah, you have to do it. You have to stay locked down. You can't go to church, but you can go to the liquor store. You can't go to church, but you can go to the casino. You can't go to work, but you can go riot and burn down buildings. That's what happens when you lose the culture war. We've lost academia. Our kids are indoctrinated. That's why I'm all for it at this point. Don't send the kids back to school. You're right. Even though the science says that's the right thing to do. You're right. Don't send them back. America, understand how worthless the teachers' unions are yet? Let's take that tax money, give them to parents, and leave them pursue their kids' own education. Then we might actually have kids that get educated as opposed to falling every year, as we see when it comes to kids around the world. And the added benefit, they won't be indoctrinated. Wouldn't that be great? Silicon Valley, totally dominated by the left. Academia, as I already said. Entertainment industry, which matters, our culture, totally dominated by the left. The media, totally dominated by the left. The right didn't fight back. It's time to stop electing these same people that are either incompetent or they don't care. Or they're cowards. Which is probably most of them. Right, HR. Right, and I talked about this way back when I was in the debate community, 2003. I used to tell my friends, like, you should see these psychopaths, man. They're walking around, you're white, you should be dead. You should have to forfeit because you're white. You're a male, you should be dead. You should have to forfeit. There's no difference between men and women. There's no biological difference between men and women. People are like, those people are nuts. Well, they're running the New York Times right now. They're running Hollywood. They're running Silicon Valley. They're running the universities. No one did anything, so here we are. So until we start fighting back at that level, Bland but Spicy says, what do I say to the alt-right? Yeah, first off, define what you mean by alt-right. Because people define it as different ways. If by alt-right you mean racial identitarians on the right, I despise them. I can't stand racial identitarianism. I can't stand racial supremacy. White nationalism, black nationalism, Asian nationalism, Hispanic nationalism. I don't care. I hate it all. If some people define alt-right as someone on the right that's not like a Fox News, so that, maybe you listen to Mike Cernovich. Is Mike Cernovich alt-right? I don't think he is. Not in the way I would define it. But the alt-right that believes in sort of kind of white nationalism, if that's how you want it, like the Richard Spencers of the world, yeah, I despise them. In fact, I think that the biggest joke in the country is that the alt-right, as it's called, or the white nationalists, I'll just call them, they're best friends with the black nationalists. They agree on everything. One we consider woke, and the other we consider racist. And they agree on everything. There was actually a really funny comedy skit someone did on this recently. It was really good. They're both for segregation, for white or black-only spaces. They both view the world through the lens of race, first and foremost. They both blame everything wrong that happens on them on their racial makeup and the fact that people hate them for their racial makeup. They both believe violence is sometimes justified to achieve their political ends. I despise all of that stuff. Of course Richard Spencer's going to vote Democrat. Why wouldn't he? This David Duke came out and said he defended Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar when they were attacking Israel. Of course. I keep telling people, you won't hear it though. You won't hear the media go up to Joe Biden 500 times like they did to Trump. What do you think about David Duke? What do you think about Richard Spencer endorsing you? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? They won't do that because the media is corrupt and they're just propagandists. Well, Chris, yes. The difference between a white nationalist and a black nationalist is just who they think's superior. Yes, black nationalists believe blacks are superior. White nationalists believe whites are superior. But other than that, they agree on almost everything. Oh, okay. So Bland but Spicy is going to go with the old dog whistling trope. So Bland but Spicy says the following. You're using some alt-right talking points when you talk about globalists and leftists in academia and leftists in finance and industry. Of these are code words. So that's code words. So, for example, if you have a problem with corporations dominating the world and the actual people not getting a real say in things, then obviously you're a white nationalist, right? Bland but Spicy, I believe you're using code words for anti-Semitism right now. You're basically using code words for the Nation of Islam. Should we block Bland but Spicy here for giving code words because he's an anti-Semite? He's giving code words for anti-Semitism. Should we block him? I guess we'll leave you stay, but yeah, I mean, it's really troubling that you're an anti-Semite. So sorry for that. it's so stupid. It's one of the dumbest attacks. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm absolutely sick and tired of it. Oh, if you talk about an issue that so never mind that we just heard that the alt-right's voting for Democrats. So now Democrats are alt-right, right? They're using the same talking points that the alt-right is. Never mind that. One of the greatest gatekeeping tools in history is labeling someone who has a legitimate fact as a racist or as a Nazi or something because it's something that Nazis may have agreed. So, for example, if I said, hey, I think it's really important to be energy independent. Oh, the Nazis also thought it was important to be energy independent. Therefore, you're a Nazi. Oh, that's using talking points of the Nazis. They talked about racial independence. You want to know one of the first things that Nazis did when they came into power in Germany? They were incredibly hygienic. Incredibly. Like, to a fault. Like, one of the first things they did was go into factories and, like, bleach them all clean. They were super germaphobe. Like, Hitler and the company, they were super germaphobe. So I guess everyone who wants the lockdowns under COVID, they're dog whistling to Nazism, right? Isn't that how it goes? Oh, you and your cohorts, Bland, you get to pick and choose who's using talking points of Nazis. When it's you using some talking points that they use, all of a sudden, oh, no, these are just legitimate. I legitimately am concerned about COVID. That's all. Please, stop with your gatekeeping horse shit. I'm sick and tired of people trying to bring this crap up. You're a racist. That's what you are. If you can't deal with people's actual factual points without saying that they're dog whistling to some racist that may have said some point in the past, then that means you're a racist and you're covering up for it. That's what they do. That's what the racists do. They claim that other people are dog whistling hatred against whites. So you're doing the same thing. So now you're dog whistling to the white supremacies. Unbelievable. One second. Why is a known racist backing Somalian-born Ilhan Omar? David Duke, you know that David Duke, head of the KKK, tweeted, Ilhan Omar is now the most important member of the U.S. Congress. Huh, that's weird. No, that's probably not a good enough source, though, right? Huh. Why wouldn't he like her? She doesn't like Israel. Neither do the white supremacists. Can you tell me a big national movement on the right that's supported by almost every Republican that had David Duke or some sort of racial nationalist run security at a funeral for? Oh, you can't? Well, I could do that with the Democrats and Black Lives Matter. Because Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam, they ran security at George Floyd's funeral. But that's cool. That's cool, right? Thank you for saying you like my energy. It's one of the most frustrating, disingenuous things you'll ever see. Point to me doing anything racist ever on my channel. Point to it. Go ahead. Just 3 days ago, I was on here fighting with people that were trying to, well, actually, Hitler didn't kill as many people, was fighting with them. But if I don't totally agree with someone politically, all of a sudden, then what you do is you say, oh, well, you're dog whistling to racists. You're dog whistling to the alt-right. Bullshit. I'm sick and tired of it. People like Bland but Spicy, they really want all of the death that occurs in the black community. That's what they want. They're actually the white supremacist. Bland but Spicy is a white supremacist. He is. He thinks that it's hilarious and he thinks it's great that so many black people die in the inner city. That's why he doesn't want you talking about it. The way we solve problems is to be able to talk about the problems and then say, what could we do? Bland but Spicy says, no, you can't talk about those deaths or you're dog whistling to white supremacy. And then he laughs because he's like, yeah, I hope they keep dying. Good job, Bland but Spicy. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you're dog whistling to white supremacists. That's fantastic. No, Bland but Spicy says, I'm critical of Israel. Anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite. You're dog whistling to the right, alt-right. Wow. That's terrible. I'm so sorry, everyone, that on my Twitch stream that we have an anti-Semite on there. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Yep, so... That's the quality of argument that you get from this crowd. Trump's a racist. I hate Israel too, but Trump's a racist for defending Israel. You know, he's done more for Israel, and I don't like Israel, but Trump's a racist. Trump's the one that hates the Jews. Maybe Trump doesn't know who David Duke is. He denounced him at one point, but he's not an important person in their life. Unlike you and the Democrats. They think David Duke's amazing. Tell me again, which network brought Richard Spencer on to get his talking points? Oh, that was CNN. Yes, we know the Democrats and CNN and all of that crew. They really care about what David Duke has to say and what Richard Spencer has to say. Someone like Donald Trump, when he knew of him, was probably like, yeah, guy's a racist and I don't like him. Then 4 years later, they're like, what do you think of David Duke? What do you think of David Duke? What do you think of David Duke? How many people asked Ilhan Omar what she thought of David Duke when David Duke supported her and said she was the most important person in Congress? None. Meanwhile, you hate Israel, so you're an anti-Semite. That's all they have. And by the way, that was Joe Biden's talking point, and that's the center of his campaign. That Trump said some Nazis were good people. He did not, as I've gone through over and over on this channel. He did not say that. He specifically said that the Nazis weren't good people. But that's all that these people have. They have to shout racism at you because they have no facts or logic whatsoever. They themselves are racist. They are complete and total racist. They judge people based on their race. And because of that, they assume anytime you make a point that it must be judging through the lens of it. How else could you listen to me who's sitting here saying, like, I hate racial identitarians. I hate people that want it on the right that want to talk about we need a country for white people and stuff like that. And then go, yeah, but those are some alt-right talking points. I didn't have to read your whole comment, Bland but Spicy. See, you said, because of a couple things I said, that they were alt-right talking points. So I took one section of what you said. You said that you're critical of Israel. You're an anti-Semite. You're dog whistling to anti-Semitism. That's what you're doing right now. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're a disgusting anti-Semite. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Of course there's open racism in conservatism. Of course. Every side will have, every political ideology will have racist, it will have extremist, of course. Am I saying that there's no people that don't hate black people that vote Republican? No. But it's not a central thesis to the Republican Party, which I criticize the Republican Party all the time. However, a race-focused belief is the central thesis to the establishment in the Democratic Party. And we see many racists as a result of it. Yeah, don't listen to him, hacking prodigy. He's just an anti-Semite. You know? Sorry for getting a little fired up. And that inevitably that'll happen today on this debate. So you just get used to it. That's something you'll every time I have one of these debates, this comes up. As soon as we get to a topic that they don't want to discuss, they just say, "Oh, that's an alt-right talking point." Oh, Bland but Spicy's yelling about Jews again. Oh, gotcha. Yep. Anti-Semitic talking point. Tell me, Bland but Spicy, does it upset... Do you not think that it's an alt-right dog whistle that you're going after AIPAC, the same group that's gone after by David Duke and Richard Spencer so much? You don't think that's an alt-right talking point? You don't think so? I mean, the irony of this is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Accuses me of being alt-right or dog whistling to the alt-right, and then immediately goes, but seriously, Israel's horrible. Israel and AIPAC's horrible. Yeah. Now if you came in accusing me of dog whistling, I'd say, yeah, you're making reasonable points and it's worth discussing. Absolutely. But you don't get to say, if you say something that an alt-right person says, then you're dog whistling to alt-right. Oh, and now let me say something that the alt-right says all the time. Yes, I can explain how you're an anti-Semite. Because you're dog whistling to the alt-right. That's how you're an anti-Semite. I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm pointing out your hypocrisy. You came on and said that I was doing alt-right talking points and then proceeded to use a bunch of alt-right talking points. So even if I used the alt-right talking points, I was unaware that that was something I should be judged for just because I'm saying things that are factual that maybe some neo-Nazi agrees with. But you, who does believe that, then comes in and says a bunch of stuff that neo-Nazis agree with. I do think that Israel has had too much control over our foreign policy. I think that it's not as simple as the people that hate Israel would have you believe. But certainly we shouldn't have been involved in many of the conflicts that we were, and we were there because of Israel's interest. I do think that if you want to stand up and criticize AIPAC, that's totally legitimate. And I don't think that you're a horrible person for BDS. I think it's wrong. I think that we shouldn't be boycotting Israel. That's stupid. We shouldn't sanction Israel. The UN sanctions Israel all the time. Yet we can see that there's equal, if not further, abuses coming from Palestine and other Islamic nations around them. But they believe in identity politics. That's why they do what they do. Now, that doesn't mean that Israel's never wrong. And again, I've already said, sometimes we leave them control our foreign policy in ways that's absurd. We shouldn't be involved in all these Middle Eastern conflicts. But it's not so simple as one side's always good and the other side's always bad. Both Palestine and Israel have done things that are terrible. Sometimes we should support Israel. Sometimes we shouldn't. Okay. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, if you're against AIPAC, then clearly you're dog whistling to white supremacy. I wouldn't say that. That's what you do. A bigger threat to our country than Israel is people like you. Because people like you have power. That you just shout racism. And you say there are certain things we can't discuss. And the hypocrisy, you don't even see it. You don't see it, how it took you 30 seconds to prove yourself to be a total hypocrite. You come in, oh, well, you know, some of these are talking points of the alt-right, but honestly, I don't really like Israel, and AIPAC's terrible, and blah, 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 blah. Thereby doing exactly what you criticize. And you don't see a moral problem with it. This is exactly what the establishment left is at this point. They say that you're, not that you're wrong, but you're a horrible person for disagreeing with them. If you do X, you're a horrible person. Hey, if you want the wall, you're a 10-tooth rube racist. Now, excuse me while I go to my gated community. Hey, if you criticize AIPAC, you're an anti-Semite. If I criticize AIPAC, I'm not an anti-Semite. Or a better example, oh my God, the New York Times once more, 2017, anti-Semitic attacks are on the rise in New York City. My God, Trump. It's Trump supporters. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's Nation of Islam type supporters that vote Democrat? Never mind. We won't cover it then. Bland but Spicy says, I was just trying to open up a topic about AIPAC and its influence. I didn't mean it as an attack. I'm not a libtard. That's not what you did. That's what you did, right? Yeah, you're right. You're saying, please, don't hold me to the same standard that I held you to. I wasn't trying to attack on that. I just said this PAC's a problem. You said, quote, before you brought up AIPAC, this is what you said. As I was discussing a problem with globalism and things like that, you said, quote, you are using some alt-right talking points when you talk about globalists and leftists in academia and leftists in finance and industry. Of these are code words. And then it took you, that was 1853, then it took you... Six minutes before you said, I'm critical of Israel, but I'm not an anti-Semite. And then you started talking about AIPAC, and yes, I know. You want us to hold you to a different standard than you hold other people. You want to say anytime someone disagrees with your political preference, oh, that's dog whistling to the alt-right. But then when you do the same thing, when you make a bunch of alt-right talking points about Israel and AIPAC, you say, no, I didn't want people to accuse me of dog whistling. I wanted to accuse you. It's not fair to accuse me. That's not right. You can't do that. I'm a good person. You're dog whistling to racists, but when I do it, it's just being a good person. Yes, I get it. I get what you're doing. You say, I mean, you're strawmanning me. Is every leftist idiot you've ever met? I'm not doing that. I'm not strawmanning you at all. I'm doing exactly what you did and showing how it's like the left. You did the exact same. It's not a straw man if I'm using the exact example of what you did. How is that a straw man? Did you accuse me of dog whistling for talking about globalism? Yep. Did you then proceed to start trashing AIPAC and dog whistle to white supremacists? Yep. That's not straw manning. You say you're running a bipartisan discussion. No, you're not. Accusing people that are making legitimate points that have nothing to do with race of of dog whistling to white supremacists is not a bipartisan discussion. You're not trying to find common ground when you do that. You really don't care if I think you're a racist. I don't think you're a racist. I don't. I'm attacking you in the same way you attack me. I think you're a hypocrite. I think you're a scumbag. I think that you don't have any intelligent thoughts. And that's why you have to default to saying, oh, you're saying some things that some racists say. Because you don't have anything intelligent to say. But you're probably not a racist. Sucks, doesn't it? Sucks to have someone use your own logic against you. It's terrible, huh? It's just pathetic. I just find it pathetic. And the first time I did one of these panels, was it the first or was it the first time? With Dylan Burns. Am I going to get a sub button? Yeah, I have to have so many hours of people watching me on Twitch before I could get a sub button. So thank you for watching me on Twitch. And if you're not on Twitch, if you could follow me at Normal America on Twitch TV, you could help me get a sub button so I could get donations and subs. So that would be much appreciated. Right, Chris. That's exactly the point. Now look, I don't mind. I truly mean this. I truly mean this. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. I don't. I despise hypocrisy. I'm a hypocrite at times. We all have been hypocrites. And when I'm a hypocrite, if someone calls it out, I'll try to, in good faith, listen to that. Dude, you're totally missing the point, says Bland but Spicy. I asked you to differentiate right-wing from alt-right, which you didn't do very well. Yes, I did. I talked about how I identify the alt-right as, but you didn't define what they were. And you claimed that I was using their talking points. I clearly articulated why what I define as the alt-right, or which usually defined as white nationalists, why I despise them. I clearly identified why. You say, and then I brought up some issues that do differentiate from right-wing from alt-right. I never accused you of anything. You can't even be honest now, liar. Liar. Never accused me of anything? Here we go. That's what you said about me. You said, quote, you're using some alt-right talking points when you talk about globalists and leftists in academia and leftists in finance industry of these are code words. So you did accuse me. You accused me of using code words of the alt-right. Now you're lying again. Again! Because you're a hypocrite. And again, what I was saying is, sorry to those of you on YouTube, I realize, I don't want to block them. It's fun. What's up, Paul? Great to see you. The point is this. The reason that I don't want to block you and that I like that you're here is because you're illustrating exactly the point I was making, which is why I despise the establishment left so much. It's because of your faux moral superiority and intellectual superiority when really you have neither. You'll accuse people of being immoral, terrible, evil people, dog whistling to racist, and then 5 minutes later, you do exactly that. And then when you're called out, you're like, no, that's not what I was doing. I'm just making reasonable, factual points. Yes, that's what 95% of people do, even more than that. And people like you accuse them of dog whistling towards racists. That's what the left is. They can't argue, so they have to make these types of arguments. And the irony is, if you're really looking at the group that sounds the most like white supremacists, it's the Democrats. They just don't believe the white part of it. They believe the racial supremacy part. They just don't like the white part. And Bland still doesn't get it. Here's what Bland but Spicy says next. You were using a lot of language that they use. Are you going to deny that you were using some of the language? You're using the language that they use. Not only are you using English, which is what they use, but you're specifically talking about Israel and AIPAC, which they use. And then you're saying, no, that's not what I'm doing. Yes, you are. The point I'm making is, I should not be judged if some immoral person makes an argument that sounds similar to me. So, for example, if I'm like, my favorite pizza is with pineapple and ham, and it turns out that that's what David Duke likes, that doesn't mean me advocating for pineapple and ham pizza makes me a neo-Nazi. If I'm talking about the problems of globalism, and if I'm talking about the problems of the middle class not having a voice in politics, these are reasonable. Globalism you might disagree with. The fact that the poor and the working class don't have a voice in politics, and you're like, that's dog whistling to the alt-right. You've ceded then, what you're doing is you're trying to do your damnedest to make sure that the poor and working class never have a voice. Because anytime someone talks about wanting to give the poor and working class a voice, you deflect from it by saying, well, that's what the Nazis say. You're worthless. And now you think you would stand up to me in a debate. You'd be made a fool of. Is what would happen. You'd look like an idiot. That's what would happen. Anyways, moving on from that. So, anyways, the debate that's going to be coming up. I'll reiterate this just for those of you that weren't around at the top, because I'll probably have to leave here at 7:30 to get ready for it. So here's the deal. It will not be on my YouTube channel. I will try to put it on my DLive and Twitch TV channel. So you can find me at dlive.tv at Normal America or at Twitch TV at Normal America with Rob Noor. I will try to stream it live there. It probably won't work, though, because they use Discord for audio, whereby for video. I don't know why they do that. But then it's too much for my laptop if I try to stream at the same time. So you have three options. One, you can check out my DLive or Twitch to watch that debate live. If it's not being broadcast there, you could go to Primecayes if you just search him on Twitch. He was the Black Lives Matter supporter that I debated. It'll be on his channel, so you can watch it there live, or I'll record it and you can watch it on YouTube tomorrow. But that'll be the plan. For the topics are nonsense, I think. Let's set it up. Okay, Bland, you got Discord? You can come on right now. You ready? Yeah, I understand this argument too, and it's the argument that there is no real left. It's that we have a right wing and a far right. That's nonsense. The Green New Deal is as left wing of a proposal as you could find. We have open communists that are burning down streets right now in this country. That's left wing. Noam Chomsky saying, no, that's not really left wing. Yeah, it is. Yes, it is left wing. And again, this has to do with Noam Chomsky. He's a linguist, so you can understand why he would want to do it. His redefinition of terms, this is something that you see often done by the left. They always want to play the victim, and so they pretend that they don't exist or that they don't have power, even when they have almost universal power in places such as academia. So Noam Chomsky would say, oh, there is no left. it's all right-wing. Even academia is just dominated by right-wings. You know, those right-wingers that want communism and that they want, you know, government control of all of our health care. Those right-wingers, and the right-wingers, you know, that want a Green New Deal and want to end the fossil fuel industry. Those right-wingers. It's nonsense. Noam Chomsky's full of it when he says that. Yeah, I do have a Discord. It is, let me put the link up here. How do I do this? Normal America, invite people. This is the link to my Discord. Yeah, that's my Discord. So, what's up, Milo? How's it going, man? So yeah, I'm just doing just wanted to make sure my audio was going until someone accused me of being a racist. Then I got to yell at them. Or dog whistling, using code words for racist, more accurately. While they then started to scream about Israel. The most racist party are... Yep, no problem, Chris. Anytime. That's sort of true. I agree. But it's not that there is no left in this country. There certainly is. But I would assume we would agree that there is the establishment left and right. Oftentimes our establishment, and they don't care about, they're neither right-wing or left-wing. They're centrist, or they're, all they care about is power. That's not a right or a left-wing position necessarily. It's left-wing in the sense they want massive government power, but it's right-wing in the sense that they don't, they want it to be oligarchical. But yeah, I mean, I keep telling the progressives, you think, right, you think that, you know, if you're in Black Lives Matter, you really think if Joe Biden gets elected, he's going to achieve the reforms that you want? Of course he isn't. Now, I think the progressives are horrible. They're terrible, but you're being lied to. And I actually have more respect for a progressive that's not a hypocrite and that is open about it than I do a faux right-winger that'll, you know, or someone who claims to have my beliefs but is a hypocrite. So, yeah, don't think that I dislike you or anything. I have plenty of friends that are on the left, and they really believe in their left-wing principles, and they act in that way. That's fine. I disagree with it, but fair enough. So yeah, in that sense, you're right that we don't really have a left or a right. But yeah, there's a lot of Bush Democrats, right? Where? Let me see here. I might have to get ready here for this actual debate. Oh, we got someone on here. Oh. You talking, Milo?
Oh, there he is.
Hey, what's up, Spicy? We got like 10 minutes. So go ahead, dog whistle to some white supremacists. Have at her.
Okay. Well, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I wasn't challenging you I wasn't accusing you of being a racist or anything. I wanted you to differentiate. Like, if you're saying globalists and the leftist elite and all of these kind of code words, like, how do you differentiate between the two groups?
Well, but that's not, if that's what you were doing, you did a terrible job, and let me tell you why. Because you made an attack, you used language that made it seem as if what I was doing was likened to a group that was horrible. So that would be like if you said, if we came on here and you were like, hey, yeah, let's have a discussion. I think the original 3 Star Wars movies were the best. And I said, yeah, you know, that's what pedophiles say. Would you like to differentiate yourself from pedophiles? Now, would you say, oh, he's giving me a chance to differentiate myself from a pedophile, so that's a noble thing for Rob to do? No, you would say, this is garbage. Why would you make that claim to me? That's exactly what I'm doing to you.
Well, I was just trying to add a little... My dog's going crazy here. I was just trying to add a little spice, if you will, to your show.
You did. That's
spice. Fine. It's entertaining.
Okay, so then what's your... So define what you mean... In good faith, define what you mean by alt-right, and then I'll tell you whether or not I agree with them. Do you mean like the white supremacist?
Well, I mean, it seems like, in like 2015, 2016, there was a movement, with Richard Spencer. You got the Proud Boys and all these little groups. They sort of affiliated themselves with each other, even though they had some differences. Like, ultimately, they believed in nationalism, and they believed in, kind of a leftist conspiracy to hold the working man down. And I think some of those points are valid. But I think it's kind of tricky. There's a lot of nuance there, because when you start talking about Israel and these kinds of things, there's some legitimate criticism there that is suppressed. I mean, if you're somebody who believes in our founding principles of freedom of speech and stuff like that, you have to be critical of the way Israel has kind of dominated the debate on certain. I mean, making it illegal to protest in like 30 some states. They literally made it illegal. You could not do business with Texas, for instance, if you participated in a BDS type activity. That's ridiculous.
Well, protest is different than BDS. Like, so I could still hold a sign up that says "Screw Israel" and the government of Texas can't keep me out. So BDS was something specific, but I agree in general that I don't. Even though protest is more than just BDS, right? Like, or BDS is more than just protest, boycott, divest, and sanction.
Well, why?
Right? Like, sanctions more than protesting. But in general, I look, I kind of gave my stance on Israel there a little. I think that you're right that sometimes they have undue influence in our country. I think that Palestine and places like Iran sometimes have undue influence, such as the pallets of cash that Barack Obama sent over to Iran. I think that us arming Islamic terrorists in places like Syria and Libya shows that sometimes those kind of radical Middle Eastern governments sometimes have undue influence. So yeah, both sides, we get involved in way too many foreign regime change wars in general. And certainly there's room to criticize Israel. And I don't think that we should have state governments that are saying, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to be for the BDS movement. Though I would have to look at the specifics of exactly what they were saying they would do, what the punishment would be, and stuff like that. Now, to the greater point of differentiating myself from, I am a nationalist. I believe nationalism means that I love this country first and foremost, and I want my government to issue policies with the people of the United States first and foremost in mind. I am not a racial nationalist. I don't care what your skin color, religion, sexual preference, any of that is. If you are a citizen of the United States, if you were born in Zimbabwe and you became a legal citizen, you are as American as I am, period. And our government should work for you first and foremost. We should not be concerned with helping poor people around the world as long as there are poor people here. Now, that also means do no harm. We shouldn't be actively seeking to do harm to other countries and poor people in other countries, which sometimes is the case, a la the neocons that you see, in Joe Biden's party. And even Trump, when he bombed Syria, I criticized him for that. His support of the Yemen conflict from Saudi Arabia is a huge mistake, in my opinion. So that's my feeling. But I do consider myself a nationalist. I don't consider myself lumped in with Richard Spencer, nor do I think that the Proud Boys are much like Richard Spencer. I think the Proud Boys had people of varying ethnicities in them, and that they were more a tongue-in-cheek joke that then started to fight back against the uncontrolled left-wing terrorism that we see occurring across this country. I think it's ironic that we, as a country, look at the Proud Boys and go, oh, what a bunch of violent thugs, but we ignore that they're only fighting a group that started beating conservatives first. So, I mean...
Well, I don't know. They have some elements to their culture that's similar to gang culture, like they jump people in and stuff like that.
That's
they have a kind of
stupid.
They put violence.
Well, now I can go further than that. I've seen them as annoying as Antifa, like LARPing, like, oh man, we're gonna put on armor and that stuff's childish and stupid. And I've actually seen specific video, which granted you could only tell so much through video, but looked like the Proud Boys in specific situations were in the wrong. I've seen that where they started stuff. Yeah. I have. So I no, but even Gavin McInnes, that was supposedly the leader of the Proud Boys, he's admitted that. He was like, yeah, we have a-holes in our group too. But that doesn't mean that the whole group, look at the violence they've committed versus Antifa, versus Black Lives Matter. I mean, I
don't know. What has Antifa actually done? I mean, it seems like we don't even know who's really behind this violence in Portland and all these places. To me, if you've done some reading on the CIA, and they've been known to send out agent provocateurs and so forth, and how these pallets of bricks showing up on street corners in LA and around the country. It's very strange. Somebody's pushing this violence, and obviously I'm a reasonable person. I don't want this shit to happen. It makes nobody's benefiting from this. I'm for an improved racial dynamic in America, where people have more respect for each other, where blacks have more respect, whites have more respect, everyone does. But somebody's pushing this. I don't know if it's some leftist or some right winger or some government agency, but this is the underlying question. We've never had this before.
Well, okay, here's how you know who's pushing it. If it was potentially a right-winger pushing it, or if it was potentially the right pushing it, do you think that so many Democrats and left-wing media would have ignored it?
Well, they're not really. I mean, why do you say they're ignoring it?
Well, like, for example, Jerry Nadler said that it was a myth that there was violence occurring in Seattle and Portland. That's like the top-ranking Democrat. Right, and that stuff's happened all over the place. They either say it's the... Once in a blue moon, they'll say it's the right wing, but basically they say, no, it's not happening. I will be on a panel tonight, and they will say, what violence? What are you talking about violence? And there'll be left-wingers saying that. And that's because we all know it's the left doing it. Now, I'm not going to say that there hasn't been any right-wing person engaged in violence, but clearly this is left-wing violence. And we know it for various other reasons. For example, follow Andy No's Twitter feed. He shows over and over and over and over again the Facebook profile of the people that are arrested during these riots. Every single one of them are leftists. We could see that groups like Rose City Antifa out of Portland are directing this violence. That's not the CIA infiltrating and things like that. These are, even if the CIA would somehow be financing it, clearly the foot soldiers are people that identify with themselves as being on the left. That's clearly the case. The fact that they only ever show up and start violence when it's perceived as right-wing groups that they're targeting violence against, I mean, it's just, you could adopt your worldview, and that's possible, but then you just go, it's a race to the bottom. Like, because you just say, and I'm not accusing you, I'm not yelling at you, but I'm just saying, once you become that much of a conspiracy theorist where you say, well, I can't believe the reality in front of my face because maybe it's really a right-winger masquerading as a left-winger. Couldn't I say the same thing about Charlottesville? Couldn't I say that actually that was just a bunch of left-wing dudes pretending to be right-wing dudes?
Well, but there have been some verified. I know there was one case early on in these riots where some right-wing biker was caught on camera, walking along, breaking all these windows at a store, and all these leftists were like, "What the hell are you doing? This is not what we're here to do." So, I mean,
but again, I could do that with you could do that with any example, right? Like, for example, I could point to you 50 racial hoaxes where people were, either attacked or they had graffiti sprayed on their house or a swastika was put up, and almost every time we hear of one of those, it ends up being someone on the left doing it to themselves, making it up to cause racial division. Jussie Smollett, is one example.
I agreed with you. The left needs to be put in check, and the Democrats are pretty weak because they're so divided. I'm a Democrat. I consider myself more of a centrist, but the party itself doesn't want to take any hard stands on anything. They're very, which way is the wind blowing? Kind of, that's their, I mean, so yeah,
they're the establishment. That's what the left is. That's what the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is Marco Rubio and Mitt Romney and Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, right? There is no difference between them and the establishment right wing. It's just the way it is. The Democrats are interested in keeping power. The Republicans are interested in keeping power. Now, there are individuals within them that might be different. Believe it or not, I think AOC is different. I think that Bernie's probably different. I think they believe the socialism that they preach. I think it's terrible. I think they're hypocrites. They think that they could get away with excesses in their lives that they'll judge you for, but they believe it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't believe it.
Okay, I've heard about Bernie's 3 houses. Look, he inherited one of those houses. One of them is like a fishing cottage or something. The guy wrote a book that sold like 1 million copies. He not 1 million, but he made a successful book. That's how he made his money. For years and years, he was the poorest senator in Congress, and now he made a little money by his own hard work.
First off, his fishing cottage is 6 figures. I think it's $300-something thousand. His fishing cottage.
Well,
So,
I don't know about that. We have to fact check it. But
it's a modest lake house, as he put it.
Look. He's not a socialist. He is technically, he's a social democrat. A social democrat believes in government checks on monopolies and other fuckery from corporations to protect the common man. They're not against capitalism. If you're a social democrat, it doesn't mean you believe that, I can't have a certain amount of money. That's communism.
That's exactly what Bernie says. Bernie and AOC have specifically said they don't believe in a system where billionaires should be able to exist.
Well, you think that Jeff Bezos' enormous fortune is a sustainable system? Really? You think that we're going to survive when we have a few oligarchs and the rest? I
think Jeff Bezos isn't. It would be fine if Jeff Bezos achieved his money just through capitalism because he had the best product, right? Because competition would then allow that to be checked. The problem is big government advocates like Bernie Sanders have set up programs, regulations, and things like that allow people like Jeff Bezos to pay off people like Bernie Sanders so that they can find loopholes. And so what we see, for example, during these lockdowns, all of the local stores around here that are owned by mom and pops have collapsed and will probably never open again. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos' Amazon, his profits are up 100% during the lockdown. Why? Because the people that he paid for to get into Congress through lobbying, through all of the various ways, and for supporting through his newspaper at the Washington Post, have then instituted policies that helped him get rich in the name of keeping us all safe. And Bernie Sanders is a hypocrite in multiple ways. You don't get to talk about the immorality of people like Jeff Bezos because Jeff Bezos, to Bernie Sanders, Jeff Bezos seems like he has too much money. Well, to me, Bernie Sanders seems like he has too much money. And you say, well, he wrote a book. He deserves that money. Okay, then who's Bernie Sanders to say that billionaires don't deserve their money? You don't get to have it both ways. And Bernie's also against things like a border wall while he lives in gated communities. He's also for things like climate change while he flies first class and drives around in sports cars. He also has 3 homes, which he doesn't need, which leave more of an environmental footprint than I will in 10 years. Yet he lectures other people. Now, how much money do you think it costs to live a year comfortably? $100,000 per person? Why doesn't Bernie give away all of his money beyond $100,000 a year to poor people? I personally know at least 50, 60 people that could use that money. Why doesn't he give them the money and then he could lecture us on the immorality of having too much wealth? Until then, shut your mouth, you're a hypocrite.
Well, $100,000 is a lot different from what's Bezos he's up to. He's up to like 200 some. It's ridiculous.
Ask the person living under the bridge. Ask the homeless man. Ask the homeless man of the difference between Bernie Sanders and Jeff Bezos. Oh yes, Bernie Sanders multi-millions is okay, but Jeff Bezos is billions not. If you're going to lecture other people on living in excess while you have 3 houses and drive sports cars, you're a hypocrite. It's that simple.
We're not going to agree on this point.
This is the case. Like, for example, we see this from the left all the time, right? Like, what happens is that they say it'd be one thing if he just said, "Look, it's not strategic to have things like that." Then I would listen to Bernie. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying it's immoral. It's immoral to have X amount of dollars. It's immoral to have a bad environmental footprint. And then he goes and does exactly those things. That's my criticism.
Okay, let's step away from Bernie for a minute. I know you got to go soon.
I do. I got like 5 minutes. But yeah.
Okay. I mean, let's just on a philosophical level, isn't it immoral? I mean, there is a finite amount of wealth in the world. I mean, yeah, you can print more money. I guess in that way, there's an infinite amount of wealth. But in real wealth, in real estate and actual things of value, there is a finite amount. So if you allow one person to hoard essentially so much wealth, that means that you end up with somebody under the bridge in your town and my town. And in my town, I live in Los Angeles. We are tripping over homeless people every other street. So I don't see that the Republicans have any answers for this. And their Democrats at least are offering a few solutions. Okay, let's take care of healthcare. Let's take care of education. Let's take care of wages and worker protections and things like that. What are the Republicans even offering these days?
That's not what we see. Wait a minute. Who was for free markets? Who was for free trade and things like that? Was that the Republicans? NAFTA, TPP? Or was that Joe Biden and the Democrats? Oh, yeah. That's where all of our jobs got outsourced.
Yeah,
right?
It's a bipartisan thing. Anyway, let's.
But that's not. Trump's engaged in a protectionist battle against China to protect U.S. workers. Laying off shutting down the economy and then saying, but we'll send you a check isn't helping workers. It's not sustainable, as we're about to find out. And so, like, you know, and by the way, there are plenty of Republicans that are against what they see as a monopoly from places like Facebook, Amazon, and other places like that. I happen to agree with that. Now, it doesn't have to do with one person accumulating too much wealth. Yes, your argument would make sense if we had a person that accumulated 40% of the world's wealth. Then maybe, but it would be organic. People would just say, okay, we're not going to allow that to happen, and they would do something about it. We don't need the government necessarily to step in, because the problem is once you have the government step in and say, here's a dollar figure that you can't earn more than, one is you stymie innovation and you stymie people's drive, because they'll know, like the tax rates that Bernie's suggesting, people are just going to leave. Who would want to be taxed at 80 to 90% once they start making so much money? Who would work for that?
Have you
no one.
In the 1950s, the highest marginal tax rate was over 90%.
Yeah, but look at the effective tax rate. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This is what the Democrats have always done. They set the tax rate really high so that the mom and pop shop aren't able to find the loopholes. But when it came to the effective tax rate, no one paid that. All of the wealthy people found loopholes to not be able to pay that exorbitant tax. That's exactly what the tax, and that's exactly what would happen now. We set up these, we say tax people more, but then we have all sorts of things like capital gains interest and other things like that. So we set the system up so that the wealthy are able to exploit and fight. Let me ask you this. Why is it that the most elite and wealthy in this country are donating to Democrats if they truly believe that the Democrats are going to take their wealth away? Why is Jeff Bezos supporting Democrats that are going to take all of his wealth away?
Because he's not crazy. Well, he's greedy, but he's not totally insane. I think if we end up with another 4 years of Trump, we're going to lose our entire nation. We're going to end up in a war. We're going to end up with a worse depression than we're already heading into. I mean,
war? He's trying to pull out, and the Democrats are yelling that they want more war.
Well, I mean,
depression, the economy. Who is it that wants? Who's screaming that Trump didn't shut the economy down enough? I mean, whatever. We don't have enough time to talk about. I'd love to have you on the show sometime, but I see it as the exact opposite. I see the Democrats as the neocon party of war, the neo-lib party. I see them as destroying the economy and then trying to send people checks. They've never seen a program that they don't want to spend trillions of dollars on. Their policies are disastrous for the working class. I know people that have been union members their entire life that are like, I can't vote Democrat anymore. They won't vote for Trump. They don't like Trump either. But you know, the Democrats are no longer the party of the working class. They don't do anything for them. They're all about open borders and competition in the labor market. These are all things, open borders, these are what the corporations want. Again, another reason the corporations are backing the Democrats. They like the cheap labor. That's what they want. So, I do have to go. I'm not leaving because I'm pissy with you or anything. I literally just told them I'd be on at 1:45 so.
Okay, good talking to you.
Yeah. Come on some other time. We could have a longer conversation, I promise. But if I didn't have a pre-commitment, I would be happy to keep talking to you. And sorry if I got a little shitty with you, but don't accuse people of dog whistling to white supremacists. It's a shitty argument.
I don't. If you go back and read it, I was asking a question. I mean, it was a provocative question.
You were not asking a question.
I didn't accuse.
A question has a question mark. You said, and I'll repeat it.
Okay, let me go.
You said you are using some alt-right talking points when you talk about globalists and leftists and academia and leftists in finance. These are code words. You weren't asking a question. That's you saying what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, are you going to deny that the alt-right uses those same talking points?
Are you going to deny that you were using code words for the alt-right when you were complaining about AIPAC?
I was just trying to start a conversation.
That's right. So it was hypocrisy. You can't call someone else out. In fact, what do you think, if there was a white supremacist listening, who do you think they would be more in tune with? Me saying that there's a problem with the working class not being represented and that there's sort of globalism, or you complaining specifically about Israel? What do you think's more in line with the common right-wing or white nationalist talking points?
I really don't.
I think you know what they're about. They don't really like Jewish people. And I think you complaining about the government ran by Jewish people would be more in tune with them than me complaining that the working class doesn't have a voice. just my theory. I think that it's probably true. So my recommendation would be, I don't want to say that. That sounds shitty and smug. I choose not to assume people are dog whistling to the worst of their kind. I try to approach their argument in context of what they themselves have said and believe in. So that's all.
All right, fair enough.
So no, come on some other time. I would love to have you on. Also, if you like, I don't know, do you do any of these panels? They're always looking for more people, and unfortunately, I have 2 jobs, so I'm going to not be able to do as many coming up. So get on my Discord and send me, I'll send you, if you're interested, a link to some of these panels, and they'd be more than happy to have you come on and discuss things. It sounds like you would do well on them. So.
Yeah, I have a group. I was trying to say in the chat, I've been running a discussion group for like 7 years. It's Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, all kinds of crazy people.
On Twitch?
No, we've just been doing it offline for years, but we were talking about making a Twitch channel.
Yeah, do it, man. So, I'll steer people there, regardless if I agree with you or not. I think people discussing stuff's good. So, yeah, let me just go ahead. If you do it, put a link. If you're interested in doing some of these other panels, just get in touch with me and I'll let you know. So.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, man. Thanks for joining. I'm not dog whistling the racist. I hope you're not either. So we'll see you, man. Take it easy. All right, end the call. How do I do this? Nope. Disconnect. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that was great. I think he called himself left wing. Yeah, I do think. But can you guys still hear me? Yes. So I'm gonna get on their panel here soon. Do is I don't know what his So for those of you, I keep forgetting YouTube as well. See what they're saying there, but yeah, do I don't on Twitch. I didn't get his political affiliation. The gentleman I was just talking to, I think, would call himself left-wing spicy. A Democrat. He said he's voting for Democrats. So, but yeah, okay. So just real quick, just to let you all know what's going on here. So I'm going to get off here temporarily. If you're watching on YouTube, go over to Twitch or DLive. I'm going to try to stream there. It probably won't work because the setup that they use is kind of crazy and it'll lag too much for them to hear me. So you have 3 options. You can check out my DLive, Normal America, or Twitch, Normal America with Rob Noor, to watch this debate live at 8 o'clock. Number 2, you could go to my YouTube channel tomorrow. I'll try to record it and upload it tonight. Number 3, you could go to Primecayes, that's Primecayes, on Twitch TV, and you can watch it live there. So I'm going to be getting off here for a minute. YouTube, I won't be back. DLive and Twitch, I will be back, hopefully. And yeah, I'll get ready for this debate. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Anyone who listens to me, I'm absolutely humbled. I really am. Hopefully you guys like my debate performance tonight. I won't be yelling as much as I was at Spicy there. Understand, there's few things that get me fired up, like accusing me of dog whistling like this conversation. I see it used by people in power too much to silence people that don't have a voice, and I'm not going to put up with it because I've been doing this since 2003. I've had people telling me because of my skin color I have to shut up, because of my gender I have to shut up. If I make a certain argument they don't like, that it's a dog whistle to someone that's a racist, and I don't put up with it. It's absolute nonsense. So I was, I would say I was more of a Ron Paul Republican. I would say I was Tea Party at the outset before I think it kind of got co-opted. But I do believe in kind of fiscal conservatism, smaller government. But I also believe in kind of a non-interventionist policy through like Ron Paul and sort of that ideology. So, all right. Thank you all so much. I'll be right back. Follow me on DLive or Twitch, and I should be there. Have a good one, everyone.